So the first one totally didn't upload. Happy Easter, everybody out there. It says, why did the end times not occur when the Bible seems to say they were going to? This Romans 13, 11 and 12, and Matthew 26, verse 8. So let's go through those. No. Romans 13, right? And it says, for that, knowing the time is now and high time to awake out of sleep, for our salvation is nearer than we believed. 12, night is far spent and the day is at hand. Using a study Bible put together by some of the best scholars for the Protestants, let me read you just their commentary. Maybe this will help a little bit, but I think some of this is caused by the residue of of the Protestant understanding that we've been saturated with in the West here. It says, breaks it down, and I'll just reread what it says in NASB. It says, do this knowing that the time that is already the hour for you to awaken from sleep, for now salvation is nearer to us than we believed. And it goes through the word. It says, the time of salvation, closing period of the present age before the consummation of the kingdom. The hour, the time for action. Salvation, the full realization of salvation of the second coming of Jesus Christ. It lists a lot of other places where ideas like this are said, like Hebrews and 1 Peter. Is near. It says every day brings us closer to the second advent of Christ. And then for 13:12 it says, goes through a similar thing. The night, the present evil age, almost gone, and day is near, is a clear example of New Testament teaching of nearness of the end times, and it gives corresponding things that are in Matthew, 1 Corinthians, Philippians, James, and 1 Peter and 1 John. It says, these texts do not mean the early Christians believed that Jesus would return within a few years, and thus were mistaken. Rather, they regarded the death and resurrection of Jesus as being crucial events in the history that began the last days. Since the next greatest event in God's redemptive plan is the second coming of Jesus Christ, the night, no matter how long the chronology may last, is almost gone. The day, the appearing of Jesus Christ, which ushers in the consummation of the kingdom. And as for Matthew 26, verse 8, you have, truly I tell you, some who are standing here will not taste death before they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. The NASB has it as Matthew 26, verse 28. For thus this is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. Now, you might have gotten this from one of the skeptical atheist websites or something that tries to cast doubt on Christianity, but there's this is kind of a quasi-bastardization of a few verses. The one that I'm familiar with is coming in the clouds. Someone standing here will not taste death before they see the Son of Man coming in the clouds. Which again, St. Stephen saw that. Peter saw that. Paul saw that. Now, Paul wasn't there at the time, I don't believe. But so were probably many others that, you know, that were written down, or maybe they weren't written down. But if they were, very likely the Romans had burned it. I mean, that's what they were out to do in the 2nd century. Much work was lost through, you know, either stuff rotting away, or it being intentionally burned by the Romans. Some biblical passages seem to say that end times were going to occur within the lifetime of the people contemporary to Christ and the apostles, which clearly did not happen. What does Orthodoxy say about these apparent false prophecies? Well, false prophecies. No, they weren't. I'm not blaming you for this, but this is something that I struggled with, because I thought, you know, these kind of do look like false prophecies when I didn't know much, and I was looking at Christianity, you know, in the initially, you know, that's when I thought maybe, you know, Christians were heavily against sex and stuff like that, instead of realizing, oh, it's a time of persecution and not the best time to have a child. But there are other verses, you know, or the sayings of Jesus where he's clearly talking about destruction of the temple or the Bar Kokhba revolt. Remember, a lot of the Protestants don't know about the early church, so the Bar Kokhba revolt they don't know about. I mean, to me, it's clear as day that when he talks about, you know, a day will come when, you know, you will leave your house and you not to go back in, or not to go back down to the lower floor to even get anything, or pray that it doesn't happen in the winter time, or that women aren't with child, because you'll have to flee to the hills. That's pretty, I mean, it's amazing. It's not a false prophecy, but one that was confirmed in between 133 and 135 AD during Bar Kokhba revolt. I see that as amazing, because we know this stuff was written before the Bar Kokhba revolt. And I don't think they were talking about the end times at all. I think it's the culture that we live in that emphasizes, oh, all this stuff, well, you know, it's not destruction of the temple, it's not Bar Kokhba revolt. And remember, a lot of these things of Christ being present, or you know, we will unite again, you know, drinking this cup. Christ is present in the Eucharist, right? In our liturgy, right? In the early Christian liturgy, they were breaking bread together. 2 or more Christians were meeting, so Christ was there. We have the presence within the Eucharist and the Holy Spirit propitiating the liturgy. So that, I mean, if you want to talk about the kingdom of heaven, it's when, I mean, just walk into a Orthodox church that's properly worshiping God. There's the kingdom of heaven right there. Christ said the kingdom was at hand. It's him. He is our salvation. You know, the kingdom is amongst you. It's him. So I think the mistake is to think that these are end times prophecies, right? And the day being near, also, yes, we're nearer to the end times, and that all this stuff, all these things have taken place, that we're at the final hour, right? You know, I mean, what is a day to God? What is an hour to God? Christ says nobody knows the day or the hour. And we are, you know, the next event will be the general resurrection, the judgment, and this kind of stuff. Am I misunderstanding what is actually being said in these passages? If so, could you inform me on the true meaning of them, or clear up incorrect notions I have? It's not, this isn't your fault. This is the tragedy of the West, of them not having any concept of early Christian history and trying to make all this stuff seem like Christ is talking about some end times thing. And in the last, you know, 40 years, we've been saturated with things like the rapture, and everybody's looking for the end of times, and they're trying to look towards Israel and all this kind of stuff. And I realized Jesus was actually giving accurate prophecies. And then you'll get the secular atheists who know nothing about the Bible and only know these kooks on televangelist TV that are trying, you know, oh yeah, see, it didn't happen. Well, it pretty much predicted the Bar Kokhba revolt, and, you know, all this kind of stuff. it's like, I mean, look at the disingenuous or dishonesty that these websites give you. Matthew 20, 26, 8, 26 verse 8. They give the totally incorrect thing, and then it's a paraphrase from something else that it's not exactly worded like this. I mean, how many people do we know see Christ coming in the clouds? I mean, definitely Peter and Saint Stephen, yeah, and even Paul. And then, I mean, it's not like we have full records of everything that happened and every miracle everyone witnessed within the first century, especially among the apostles. We have very scant amount of writing. Yes, it's a lot of writing, but we don't have, you know, every single event that the apostles witnessed. But no, you're doing fine. It's just, it's sad, and I'm totally glad you asked me this, because this stuff can trip us up. Remember, we're coming from what the ancient church, how the ancient church viewed this stuff from a Eastern Orthodox world point of view of the world, the Eastern Orthodox, not a Western view of the world or history. And their sola scriptura that informed these denominations hundreds of years ago without any historical context or context to how the church viewed them. Of course, it does look so screwy to us, and looks like, wow, they were just a bunch of failed or false prophets. But this isn't false prophecy. It would be false prophecy if they were talking about, you know, the end of times. Will even look at, if you look at Aristodes of Athens, when he talks about race, he talks about the Christian race. And this is what it was, the Christian race. This idea of race that they're using, you know, because sometimes it can be in this generational that pass away until, you know, this and that, or, but it actually, the alternative is race. And race in that connotation meant Christianity was a race. Aristodes talks about this. He talks about the Christian race. And this was common for this idea of race being, you know, a community, its own culture and worldview, was from 2nd century BC to the Middle Ages. That was the idea of race, not, you know, white, black, Hispanic, you know, that's just modern hooey or crap or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, it's sad that, you know, we've been so primed with this stuff that we'll read the beautiful words of Christ and we think he's a hypocrite or a liar, a false prophet. I shouldn't say that, smack myself, not a false prophet, but I mean, we have such a horrid filter on it from this corrupt, you know, these heresies that have been, you know, surrounded us and have saturated us, that we can't even properly read, which was, I mean, we can't see what was very blatant and common and obvious to, you know, most of the Christians for most of the time of Christianity. Thank you so much for your question. It's a good question. I'm glad I got to be the one to answer it. Feel free to message me as much as you like.